my original draft rankings, Bryce Young, number 1. I had Will Levis as my number 2 QB. I had Anthony Richardson, number 3, and I had C.J. Stroud, number 4. And then Hendon Hooker was number 5. New ranking after 11 weeks, even knowing that it's one season, Matthew Stafford had one of the worst rookie seasons of any quarterback in history. I think we've reached the point now where it's impossible not to have C.J. Stroud as the number 1 quarterback in a redraft. Bryce Young's situation is rough, but even projecting, massive bounce back forward, like Stroud has shown all the things that we loved about Bryce Young's game in college. So you have to put him number 1 at this point. I'm still willing to give Bryce Young the benefit of the doubt and say the situation is awful. He's still my number 2 guy. And then that basically leaves Will Levis and Anthony Richardson locked in there at 3 and 4. I haven't seen enough from any of those guys that I'm willing to completely change the rankings. But number 5 is interesting because obviously Hendon Hooker hasn't played. He's coming back from that knee injury. But we have seen other quarterbacks play, a lot of them, in fact. And I would say Aiden O'Connell has done enough that you can put him in as the 5th best QB. He has shown the capacity to start games. He's shown the capacity to make big-time plays. And it comes with this roller coaster of bad plays as well, which was always there on his tape. It was a case of where's the balance. But I think we've seen enough from O'Connell now that minimum you have to say he's got as good a chance as Hendon Hooker to become a starting quarterback somewhere down the line.
Our rankings are very similar. I mean, I could just get to mine because I think we could talk about maybe some of the differences, but our rankings are pretty similar here.
Mm-hmm. What do you got?
Wait, did I? Am I going full robot again? Is that happening?
I think you're good. I think you're good.
Okay. All right. Just making sure. I don't want the people to have to go through that again and my screen jumped. So just making sure. All right. So my pre-draft rankings. I had Bryce Young at number 1. C.J. Stroud at number 2. I had Anthony Richardson at 3. I had Will Levis at 4. And I had Hendon Hooker at number 5. So if we're redrafting it today, I agree. I don't really think that even the people who believe in Bryce Young a lot can stand here and not have C.J. Stroud number 1 with how he is playing. I get that it's a rookie year. You're right. There's a lot of things that can change. A rookie year doesn't define an NFL career, but you got to have C.J. Stroud at number 1 at this point. I also still gave Bryce Young the benefit of the doubt as that QB2. I just think that the situation in Carolina is terrible. And to be honest, I think the rest of it is bad as well, man. Like, I think that the coaching staff isn't right for him. The offensive line's bad. The wide receivers are bad. And he honestly I just wrote this recently. He looks like a deer in the headlights. Yeah. He doesn't even look like the same player at Alabama. So I'm hoping that this offseason he, has a 2-week darkness retreat, Aaron Rodgers style, and just forgets everything that happened over the last calendar year and gets back to playing the football that we saw him play at Alabama, because I still think he's good. Love what I saw from Anthony Richardson in the limited time that we saw with him and Shane Steichen. I like the potential of Will Levis still. Had him at number 4, still have him at number 4, and I agree completely. I wasn't that jazzed about Hendon Hooker coming into the draft anyways. I had him at number 5 because I think that he was the most viable number 5 quarterback within the rankings. I thought that was smart pre-draft, but now that I've already really seen it from Aiden O'Connell, and I wrote this in my Aiden O'Connell scouting report, if there's a player that I'm going to take a chance on from the 3rd round on at the quarterback position, a guy that I would bet on to become a starter, it would be O'Connell. That's the guy that I would bet on. And so now that we are seeing starting caliber moments from him, I think that I'm pretty comfortable putting him at number 5. So that is my list. The only real change that I have is I'm flipping Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud because you have to at this point.
It's basically it would be extremely difficult to construct the argument that doesn't deserve to happen, even if you're willing to completely absolve everything we've seen from Bryce Young. Like, you can point to a lot of quarterbacks that started badly and had rough seasons. You can point to very few that had worse opening seasons than Bryce Young has had. Like, we are talking historically bad at this point. But even if you're willing to say that's just, it's Matthew Stafford's rookie year, he'll come good, he'll be great down the line, you still have to ignore basically everything you've seen from C.J. Stroud and say, not only is he going to be great down the line, but he's going to be better than what we've seen from Stroud, which is already extremely good. So, like, you have to adjust the rankings from both different sides, right? You have to move Stroud up and bring Young down.
The argument for Bryce at this point is him not getting jumped by Richardson. Honestly, like it is less of an argument for him being above Stroud, and it's more of him staying above Richardson at this point. Because what we saw from Richardson, it wasn't perfect, but like, damn, he had some nice moments, and clearly, like, a physical beast at the top level now in the NFL, where he's going to be a difference maker as a runner, he's going to be a difference maker as a passer with how fast he could throw the ball, how far he could throw the ball. Like, we saw glimpses of all of that, where he's still putting it together, of course, before he got hurt, but the reason why you would keep Bryce Young at number 2 isn't a CJ Stroud argument, in my opinion. I mean, Stroud is playing well enough where what's the argument at this point? Right. Like, even the best version of Bryce Young as a rookie, I don't even think was going to look as good as what we're seeing from CJ Stroud this year. What'd you say?
The only possible argument you could even construct against CJ Stroud at this point is if you're willing to put 100% of the credit on Bobby Slowick and the system, right? And even I'm not willing to do that as a PFF Bobby, fan and friend. I'm not willing to say it's all Bobby. CJ Stroud's just a passenger in this thing. Like, maybe collectively it's working better than the sum of the parts, but like, you can't look at CJ Stroud's tape right now and say he's not elevating the thing as well as the thing elevating him.
Right. No, I agree.
And I think you're right. Like, Richardson has a case over Bryce Young. Levis has a case over. Like, we've seen Levis and Bryce Young have the same number of big-time throws, and Levis has done it on about a third of the dropbacks. Like, there's a stronger argument to put either of those guys above Bryce Young based off NFL tape than there is anything else. But we had Bryce Young significantly higher based off college resume, and that still matters even though we've seen 11 games of the NFL.
The toughest part for Bryce is kind of what I said before. Like, he's not even the same player that we saw at Bama.
Yeah,
it's not like we're getting the Alabama version of him, and he's just making more mistakes or playing in a less talented area. Like, he does not even look like the same player. He looks like he's a shell of himself. Like, he's a walking ghost. Like, he's staring into the abyss most of the games every time the camera goes on it. And so that's the tough part for me. And that's why it's really, really hard to evaluate the season, because I've said on the show before, and I've said it many times, confidence is so important to play this game. It is the key to unlocking all of your talent and all of your potential. If you are not a confident football player, you're not going to be good. I don't know how many players are playing with less confidence than Bryce Young right now. And so I don't even know how to... People are like, oh, see, I told you, he doesn't have the arm strength to do it at the NFL level. He's too small to do it at the NFL level. I can't even tell you whether or not that is or is not the case until I see him try to play more confidently. Honestly. Because we haven't... The second that we get to see Bryce Young, like, I'm hoping next year he comes out of the gate swinging. New man, new quarterback, playing confident as hell. They win, 3 out of their first 4 games. He's playing well. He feels like the man. And then he goes up against a really good defense, and he's trying to push the ball as far as he can, as fast as he can, as confidently as he can. And if that ball starts to get picked off all the time, then you go, okay, probably doesn't have the physical ability to play as a starting quarterback at this level. But we don't even get to see that right now, because instead he's hesitant with his reads. He's slow with his reads. He doesn't trust himself. He doesn't trust his receivers. He doesn't trust his offensive line. So we're not even seeing his talent right now. We're just seeing a shell of what Bryce Young is supposed to be. And obviously he's not going to be able to dominate the game physically. He was always going to dominate the game mentally if he was going to ever get to that level. So to me, that's kind of how I'm viewing Bryce Young. And I'm almost just punting this entire year, because you almost have to. He's just not going to be a quarterback that's really fair of evaluation right now.
Well, you're right. Yeah, you're either punting on the entire year, or you are terrified at what this is doing to him, right? There's 2 ways of looking at this. Either you say, let's throw it out. It's almost entirely meaningless because the situation is so bad. Or you're like, he is in fact this bad and his entire career is already in jeopardy 11 games into his, rookie season. Either way, it's not good.